Refugee by Gratz. Isabel. Somewhere on the Caribbean Sea. 1994. 3 days from home. Isabel woke to a warm orange glow on the horizon and a silver sea sketching out before them like a mirror. It was as though the storm had been some kind of feverish nightmare. Senor Castelo woke from his nightmare too. Parched like a man who'd been lost in the desert. He drank almost one of the few gallons of water they had left in the one long chunk and laid back against the side of the boat. Isabel worried about her mother. For Miami, the nightmare was just beginning. The illness she'd felt as the storm began had gotten worse in the night, and now she escaped as she had a fever hotter than a rising sun. Little dipped a scrap of shirt into the cool sweater and wrapped it across the solder hole before the aspirin from the lost medicine box. There was no way of bringing the fever down. Mommy moaned, holding her stomach. The baby will be fine, Little told her. A good, strong, healthy baby boy. Little and Senora Castello took care of Isabel's mother. Poppy and Louis got the engine restarted and bathed it with water to keep it cool. Amara at the rudder steered them north now that the sun was in the sky. Everybody had a job, it seemed, except Isabel and Ivan. Isabel bumped shoulders and stepped on toes, and she wobbled her way over to Ivan in the prow of the boat. She sat down beside him with a huff. I feel useless, she told Ivan. I know, he said. Me too. They sat for a while in the silence before Ivan said, "Do you think we'll have to do algebra in our new American school?" Isabel laughed. Yes. Will they have political rallies every day at school in the U.S.? Will we have to work in the fields all afternoon? His eyes went wide. Do you think we'll have to carry guns to protect us from all the shootings? I don't know, Isabel told him. The teachers told them all the time how homeless people starved in the streets of the U.S. and how people who couldn't afford to pay for doctors got sick and died, and how thousands of people were killed by guns every year. As happy as she had been to the El Norte, Isabel suddenly worried that it wouldn't be as magical a place as everyone in the boat believed. No matter what, I'm glad you came with us, Ivan said. Now we can live next door to each other forever. Isabel blushed and looked at her feet. She liked that thought too. Castro's face was even more submerged now, which meant they were taking on water between the tanker and the storm. The little boat had suffered a pounding, and it had been very seaworthy to begin with. Senor Castelo had only expected the boat to be on the water for a day, 2 at the most. How much longer will it take them to get to Florida? And where exactly were they? Hey, is that land? Ivan asked. He pointed over to the side of the boat. Isabel and the others scrambled so quickly to see that the boat tipped dangerously in the water. Yes, Isabel could see it, as a long, thin, dark green line along the blue horizon land. Is it Florida? Ivan asked. It's the wrong side of the boat of the U.S., Lewis said, looking back at the sun. Unless we got blown into the Gulf of Mexico overnight. Whatever it is, I'm steering for it, Amara told them. Everyone watched in silence as the green line turned into hills and trees, and the water got clearer and shallower. Isabel held her breath. She had never been so excited in her entire life. Was it really the United States? Had they made it? Amara brought them closer to shore. Then turned and ran south along it. Isabel searched the shore. There, she pointed to the red and yellow beach umbrellas. The chairs beneath them. And in the beach chairs were white people. A woman in a bikini lifted her black sunglasses and pointed at them, and the man with her sat up and stared. As the boat rounded the beach, Isabel saw more people all staring at and pointing and waving. Yes, we made it, Isabel said, shaking Ivan's arms. Ivan hopped up and down so much the boat groaned. Florida, he cried. A black man in a white suit hurried down the beach toward them, waving his arm over his head to get their attention. He yelled something in English and pointed for them to go farther south. Amara followed the shore around a bend, and the open ocean gave way to a quiet little bay with a long wooden pier. The pier had a little cafe with a table and chairs. Fancy two-man sailboats were parked on the beach next to the volleyball courts, and more umbrellas and chairs dotted the sand. Isabel's heart leaped. The U.S. was even more of a paradise than she even ever imagined. Lewis flipped a switch, and the putter of the engine died. The white people got up and from their tables at the bar to help pull them to the dock, and Isabel and the others reached for their hands. Their fingertips were almost close enough to touch when black men in the white short-sleeved uniforms pushed their way between their vacationers on the pier of the boat. One of them said something in a language Isabel didn't understand. I think he's asking if we're from Haiti, Little said to the others in the boat. We're from Cuba, he said slowly in Spanish to the uniformed man. You're from Cuba? The officer asked in Spanish. Yes, they cried. Where are we? Poppy asked. The Bahamas, the man said. The Bahamas? Isabel's mind went back to the map of the Caribbean on the wall of the schoolroom. The Bahamas were islands in the north and east of Havana, directly above the middle of Cuba, a long way east of Miami. Had the storm really taken them that far off course? I'm sorry, the officer said, but you're not allowed to land. Bahamian law forbids the entrance of illegal aliens to the Bahamas. If you set foot on Bahamian soil, you'll be taken to custody and returned to your country of origin. Behind the officers, one of the tourists who knew Spanish was translating for the others. Some of them looked upset and started arguing with the authorities. We have a sick, pregnant woman, Little said to the officer. He moved so the men on the dock could see. Isabel's mother and the tourists behind the officers cried in concern. The officers conferred and Isabel held her breath. The commandant says that for health reasons, the pregnant woman may come ashore and receive medical attention, the Spanish-speaking officer said. Isabel and Ivan clutched at each other with hope, but she cannot have her baby here, the officer said. As soon as she is well, she will be deported to Cuba. Isabel and Ivan sagged, and everyone else on the little boat was silent. Isabel felt sick. She wanted her mother to get better, but she didn't want them to be sent back to Cuba. Couldn't the Bahamas just let them stay? How was one more Cuban family going to hurt? She looked back at the pier and nice cafe. There were plenty of room. The situation was explained to the tourists on the pier, and they gasped and waited. All right, Little said. My daughter is sick. She needs medical attention. No, Poppy said. You heard him. If we step foot off this boat, they'll send us back to Cuba. I'm not going back. Then I'll go with her, Little said. I care for Teresa's life more than I care for El Norte. Tears ran down Isabel's cheeks. No. This wasn't the way things were supposed to happen. Her family was supposed to be together. That's why she'd insisted they'll all go on the boat. And if her mother went back to Cuba and her father went to the United States, which one of she was supposed to go with? Little started to lift Isabel's mother, but my mommy pushed him away. No, Isabel's mother said, but Teresa, Little said, no, I don't want my baby to born in Cuba. But you're ill. You can't take another ocean voyage, Little argued. I will not go back, Mommy said. She reached up and took her husband's and her daughter's hands. I will stay with my family. Relieved, Isabel threw herself into her mother's arm. She was surprised when she felt her father kneel down into the boat and help them both. It sounds like we're leaving then, Lewis told everyone in the boat. Before they could get the engines restarted, one of the tourists tossed down a bottle of water to Senora Castillo. Soon the rest of the tourists were hurrying back and forth to the cafe, buying bottles of water and bags of chips and tossing them into everyone's hands on the boat. Aspirin? Does anyone have an aspirin? For my mother, Isabel begged. Up on the dock, an old white woman understood, and she quickly dug around in her big purse and tossed a plastic bottle full of pills to Isabel. Thank you, Isabel cried. Her heart ached with gratitude toward these people. Just a moment's kindness from each of them might mean the difference between death and survival for her mother and everyone else on the little raft. By the time they finally restarted the engine and Amara swung them around to leave, and they had more food and water than they had brought with them to begin with. But they were farther away from Florida and freedom they had ever been before. Mahmoud, somewhere on the Mediterranean Sea, 2015, 11 days from home. My baby, Mahmoud's mother wailed. My Hannah is gone. The Mediterranean was still attacking them, wave after wave trying to drown them, and Mahmoud could tell that his mother didn't want to fight anymore. It was all Mahmoud could do to keep her head above the water. I'm still here, Mahmoud told her. I need you. I gave my baby to a stranger, Mahmoud's mother howled. I don't even know who she was. She's safe now, Mahmoud told her. Hannah is out of the water. She's going to live. But Mahmoud's mother would not be consoled. She lay back in the water, her face into the sky, and sobbed. The dingy coming by had re-energized Mahmoud, but he could feel the buzz quickly draining away, replaced by a cold exhaustion that felt his arms and legs numb. The sea rolled over him and he went under again, coming up spluttering. He could not keep himself and mother afloat, not for long. They were going to die here. But at least Hannah was safe. Yes, he had been the one to convince the stranger to take his little sister away, and yes, his mother might never forgive herself for letting Hannah go. But at least neither of them would have to live long with their regret. The rain began again, and the awful, pelting, deadening rain, and it felt to Mahmoud like Allah was crying with them. They were drowning in tears. Under the sweeping wash of rain, Mahmoud heard something like a drum beat. Water on something that was not water. He searched the rising and falling waves until he saw it. The back side of the life jackets was still strapped to a man who floated face down in the water. In his mind's eyes, Mahmoud immediately filled the drowned man's face with that of his father, and his heart thumped against his own useless life jacket. He flailed in the water, half swimming, half towing his mother toward the body. But no, the life vest was blue and his father's had been orange, like Mahmoud's. And this one was a real working life jacket. Mahmoud let his mother go for just a moment and wrestled the body over. It was a big man who had sat next to him on the dinghy. His eyes and mouth were open, but there was no life in either one. The man was dead. It was the first dead body Mahmoud had seen, not after 4 years of civil war, with his hometown right in the center of the fighting. A man had been killed right next to him in this family's car. He realized with a start how long ago had that been. Days, weeks, it seemed like a lifetime ago. But no matter how many times he saw death, it never stopped being horrifying. Mahmoud shuddered and recoiled. But if the man was dead, that meant he didn't need his life jacket. Mahmoud fought down his tear and fumbled with the straps on the dead man's life jacket. Mahmoud's finger moved, but he couldn't feel them. His hands were like blocks of ice. He only knew he was touching the straps because he could see it happening. Finally, he got one strap unbuckled and another, and as the body began to shift in the vest, Mahmoud realized he was condemning this man to the bottom of the sea. He would never be bathed and wrapped in a kafan, never be mourned by those who loved him, never leave his friends and families, say prayers over him, never be buried facing Mecca. Mahmoud was putting a man in his grave, and he had a duty to him. Mahmoud had heard funeral prayers too many times in his short life, most recently for his cousin, Sayed, who had died when a barrel bomb exploded. Mahmoud quietly recited one now. Oh God, forgive this man and have mercy on him and give him strength and pardon him. Be generous to him and cause his entrance to be wide and wash him with water and snow and hail. Cleanse him of his transgressions as white cloth is cleansed of stains. Give him an abode better than his home, and a family better than his family, and a wife better than his wife. Take him into paradise and protect him from the punishment of the grave and from the punishment of hellfire. When he was finished, Mahmoud clicked open the last of the straps on the man's body, rolled out of the vest and down into the murky depths of the Mediterranean Sea. "Here, Mom, put this on," Mahmoud said. It took some time to get her into the life jacket, Mahmoud doing most of the work. But at last it was on her, and Mahmoud no longer had to fight to keep her afloat. She lay on her back, eyes closed, muttering about Hannah, and Mahmoud clung to her life jacket. He still had to kick his legs to not pull them both under, but not nearly so much. He didn't know where they would go or how they would get out of the water. Perhaps in the light of day they would see land and be able to swim for it. In the meantime, they had to survive the night.